You were born into a story that started long before you, before your first word, before your first breath, before you ever had the chance to choose who you would be. There were shadows waiting for you, not monsters, not curses, not ghosts with faces, but pain, unspoken, unresolved, unrelenting. Let's talk about transgenerational trauma, not the pain you lived, the pain you inherited, the ache that lives in your nervous system without a memory, the fear that has no origin story, the shame that didn't start with you, but shapes you anyway. Let's talk about the invisible inheritance. You grow up feeling heavy, anxious in safe places, disconnected in moments that should be joyful, afraid to trust, afraid to relax. And when someone asks you why, you don't know what to say because nothing happened. Not to you, but something happened to the people who made you, and it left a mark inside your body. Let's talk about epigenetics. Science once believed trauma ended with the person who experienced it. But now we know trauma alters the body at the cellular level. It changes gene expression. It teaches the next generation how to survive before they're even born. A mother who survived war passes down cortisol regulation changes to her children. A father who lived through genocide transmits altered stress responses to his sons. A grandmother who buried her rage gives birth to a lineage of girls who don't know why they can't speak. Let's talk about the trauma loop. Pain that isn't processed gets passed on, not through blood, through behavior, through silence, through rage, through absence, through overprotection, through rules that don't make sense, through warnings without explanation. And the child, you, learns the shape of fear without ever knowing its name. Let's talk about the family myth. Every family has one. We don't talk about that. We're strong. We never show weakness. We don't cry in front of others. We survive. But underneath the myth are the fractures, the abuse that was never named, the death that shattered everything, the betrayal that divided the bloodline, the migration that uprooted belonging, the shame that froze generations in silence. And you, the child of survivors, exiles, abandoned lovers, frightened parents, absorb it all. Let's talk about loyalty to suffering. You feel like you owe them. The ones who came before, the ones who held everything in, the ones who never got the life you're trying to build. So you sabotage. You play small. You choose pain over peace. You feel guilty when things go well because somewhere in your bones, you believe if they couldn't have it, why should I? Let's talk about the body as the archive. You carry what they couldn't say. Your anxiety is a language. Your freeze response is a story. Your chronic tension is a message passed down through generations of mouths that stayed shut because speaking was not safe. And now, your body speaks it for them. Let's pause. You think your pain doesn't make sense. You think you're overreacting. You think you're broken without a reason. But maybe you're not carrying your own suffering. Maybe you're living inside a grief you were born to end. There's a reason you don't feel free. A reason joy makes you uncomfortable. A reason peace feels like disloyalty. And that reason isn't visible. It lives in the quiet places, in your hesitation, in your shame, in your guilt. It's called inherited loyalty. Let's talk about how the past programmed your choices. You didn't choose your fears. You didn't invent the self-doubt. You didn't decide to struggle, but you do. You hold back when it matters most. You question your worth even in your victories. You feel alone in rooms filled with love. And when you dig deep for the why, you find a strange silence. But that silence isn't empty. It's filled with the echo of generations, people who were punished for shining, people who gave everything and received nothing, people who survive by staying invisible. And now you live their patterns like they're your own. Let's talk about emotional contracts you never signed. In every family touched by trauma, a contract forms. Unspoken, unconscious, binding. Don't surpass us. Don't feel what we weren't allowed to feel. Don't speak what we were forced to swallow. Don't break what we sacrificed to keep together. Don't be free if we never were. You don't remember agreeing to this, but you live it. In your career, your relationships, your voice, your health. Every step toward wholeness feels like betrayal. Let's talk about the fear of becoming different. To heal means to evolve, to step out of the old story, to say, I love you, but I don't want this pain anymore. But that's terrifying because the story is all you've known. And if you step out of it, who are you? Will they still recognize you? Will they still accept you? Or will you become the one who broke the chain by walking away? Let's talk about the burden of being the strong one. In many families, the sensitive child, the intuitive child, the one who questions everything, becomes the carrier of the unspoken. You feel more. You see more. You ache more. And because of that, you absorb more. You become the emotional container for generations too wounded to cry. And now you're exhausted. Not because you're weak, but because you're holding what was never meant to be yours alone. Let's talk about guilt for healing. You start going to therapy. You set boundaries. You express needs. You begin building a life that feels like your own. And the guilt hits. They didn't get to do this. I'm turning my back on where I came from. What if my healing makes them feel ashamed of their survival? So you sabotage, you hide your growth, you stay small, you try to carry the future without upsetting the past. Let's talk about ancestral shame. In some families, trauma is wrapped in silence, but shame is loud. We don't ask for help. We keep it in the family. We don't cry in public. We survive quietly. You grow up thinking emotions are weakness. That vulnerability is indulgent. That struggle is noble. And now, your nervous system collapses under the weight of all that nobility. Because humans aren't meant to carry grief that doesn't move. Let's pause. You think breaking the cycle is about being strong, but sometimes it's about being willing to be misunderstood, to disappoint, to be the one who walks away, to be the one who asks, why should this pain live one more generation? You think you're betraying your blood, but maybe you're honoring it in the only way that leads to peace. You don't want to break anyone's heart. You don't want to be the one who walks away. You don't want to seem ungrateful, cold, different. But you've started to feel something in your bones, a pull, a scream, a truth too loud to silence anymore. You were not born to repeat this. Let's talk about what it really costs to be the cycle breaker. It's not just therapy. It's not just self-help books. It's not just boundaries and deep breaths. It's grief. Grief for the family you wish you had. Grief for the safety you were never given. Grief for the years you lived performing a role you didn't choose. And it's loneliness. Because once you step out of the legacy of pain, you stop speaking the same language as the people who raised you. You want to talk about feelings. They shut down. You want to name the silence. They call it disrespect. You want to heal. They say you're broken. And sometimes you start to believe them. Let's talk about the terror of being the first to cry out loud, the first to say, no, I don't want to carry this anymore, the first to believe they are allowed peace. There's no map for that, no applause, no certainty. You question yourself constantly. Am I exaggerating? Was it really that bad? Why can't I just let it go? What if I'm the problem? Because choosing yourself in a family trained to erase themselves feels like betrayal. But it's not. It's a different kind of love. A love that says, this pain ends with me. Let's talk about the rage you carry. not just at them, at the system, at the time, at the silence, but also at yourself. For staying small, for playing along, for all the times you knew something was wrong and said nothing. That rage, it's sacred. It's the fire that forges the new. Let it burn. Let's talk about freedom not as joy, but as labor. You think healing is a lightness. And yes, sometimes it is. But often, freedom is heavy at first, because now you're responsible for your life, your boundaries, your choices, your joy. No more hiding behind the family pain. No more blame to shield you. No more suffering to justify staying stuck. You face yourself fully. And that takes everything. Let's talk about what you build in the silence. The silence after the argument. The silence after you set the boundary. The silence after you said, I won't carry that anymore. It's in that silence that the new voice emerges. Tentative, unfamiliar, but real. A voice that says, I am a new faven if no one agrees. I choose peace over legacy. I honor my family best by becoming whole. I am allowed to be free, even if they never were. Let's talk about legacy redefined. They handed you pain, but you do not have to pass it on. You get to create a new line. One where love doesn't require sacrifice, where silence is replaced with story, where softness is not shameful, where freedom is not feared. You become the ancestor your descendants will never need to recover from. Let's close with this. You think healing means walking away from them, but maybe it means walking toward yourself, fully, bravely, without apology, because the pain wasn't yours. But the healing, that's yours alone. And it begins when you stop asking for permission to finally be free.